Hey there, welcome to SaaS Unbound, brought to you by SaaS Group. I'm your host, Anna Nadeina, and this is the show where we chat with inspiring founders and experts to get an inside scoop on how they made their business a success. And today with me is Andrew Gazdecki, CEO and founder of, I want to say MicroAcquire. I still didn't get used to acquire.com, but
Candidly, I'm still getting used to it as well. I'll say MicroAcquire in front of my team, and I'm like, no, acquire.com. So
not anymore. Oh no.
it'll take a bit for I think everybody to get used to it.
Yeah, and it says MicroAcquire behind you, so it spooked me.
Yeah,
but
I'm getting that redone. Probably next week. The first step is just a big sticker, and I'll see how that looks, and then it's actually painted on my wall, so I gotta figure out what to do with that.
I thought it was like plastic or something.
No, it's painted. So I was thinking about maybe just carving it out and framing it for a keepsake.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. But yeah, I feel like everybody knows you, but I'll do just a very quick intro still. So Andrew is a founder of acquire.com, 4-time startup founder with 3 exits, real estate broker for some reason. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you want to know why that is?
Yeah, I remember it was because of the weird law that but I mean, sure, tell us.
Yeah, it could be a fun fact for the audience. So to collect commissions when you are involved in acquisitions, if it's an asset sale, you need to be a registered real estate salesperson or a business broker. And to become a business broker, you have to take the real estate. So I'm literally a registered real estate agent, which allows me to advise and consult startups on things like valuation. And then you work underneath the broker for 2 years, and then you can become a broker. And it's a super antiquated law, but the reason it's in place is most businesses that sell typically would be like a restaurant with a physical location and a lease. Oh, yeah. But in terms of SaaS companies and startup companies, mostly remote today, it's kind of funny that we got to do it.
Yeah, but it's a funny thing that you just went and did it, like whatever it took to, I guess, to offer partial acquisitions.
No, so to offer partial acquisitions, that's when you enter security transactions, and so that's a whole different regulatory. You need to become a banker or something.
Your
co-founder needs to be the SEC and FINRA. Essentially, you need to be a broker dealer to facilitate. So we don't facilitate partial acquisitions for that reason.
Right. Okay. So it's a bumpy ride. So I want to focus on acquire.com mostly because we've heard like your founding story, the previous two startups, and I guess acquire.com just was born out of your own pain, right? When you were selling your startup and it wasn't a very pleasant experience. So what was so bad that you decided to go and build something on your own?
Yeah, good question. I would say, the way I kind of view acquisitions, or the way it was viewed when I sold specifically my first business, was there just wasn't a lot of information in terms of how to exit your business. And that's arguably the most important part of the founder's journey. You're building this asset to hopefully sell it one day. And a lot of founders, I think, are under the impression that Google shows up with this check and they're like, surprise, you got acquired. But there's a lot that goes into it. And there's books on marketing, there's books on fundraising, there's books on product development, but really not much in terms of the exit. So when it came time for me to sell my business, it was this mysterious process. What is due diligence? What are the legal items? How do I prepare my startup for an acquisition? How do I properly value the startup? Also just finding a buyer. That was a huge challenge. And I think a lot of founders just face even just that one issue. And so I built Acquire just kind of with all that in mind and thinking that, there needs to be, I looked at the market and I saw, not a lot of innovation, kind of a fragmented market, and just an opportunity to, help founders and help buyers find startups to acquire. So it's kind of a mix of my personal experience and then also just surveying the market as well and just seeing that, we have all these resources for getting your startup discovered, for raising capital, but there's really no platform that, facilitates, the end journey, the acquisition, the exit. And so I thought that would be a really fun business to build because I'm also, honestly, kind of a startup nerd. So I wanted to build something for entrepreneurs and work with startups. So
just give me something new to build.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's a great, I think, a great starting point. But you didn't go and build like a directory, right? Of like, here are all the buyers and here are all the sellers. You went kind of a step further where like you can facilitate the whole process on the platform. So why did you think that that was a requirement if you wanted to go big?
Yeah, I think so. Some of the tools that we built for Acquire.com, we built a letter of intent builder, we built a P&L builder, an asset purchase agreement builder, and a number of other different tools, integrations with escrow.com. We have a number of different tools that we're going to be releasing soon. But the general concept was, there's a lot of you can get an LOI in 20 different forms. You can get an asset purchase agreement in 20 different forms. And our goal, our eventual goal is to really standardize, the legal process, and then also just make it easier for buyers to diligence startups. So we allow buyers to view real-time financial metrics from startups that list on Acquire by connecting their QuickBooks or connecting their Stripe account or connecting their search traffic. So just really speeding up the process for both the buyer and the seller. Because I'm sure, as you know, buyers are looking at a lot of businesses. And so, the more information we can provide up front, the better. And surprisingly, a lot of startups don't have just basic things like a proper P&L, or they've never put one together. And so I think just building these tools for founders and also for buyers really just helps make the acquisition process more efficient and just streamlines a lot of the tedious items.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And even now, like, a lot of founders don't know when they're researching, and I've done quite a bit of research and analytics of all the private equities and companies acquiring other companies, how people are looking for them. And just like the search is just so bizarre. People are looking for all kinds of things, but never for what these companies are doing. So they're not asking like how I can prepare for due diligence, or like what documents should I provide for this process to streamline it, to, I don't know, to make it easier for both parties. So I think standardizing it is just a great way to just simplify it for all parties.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a lofty goal. We still have a lot of work to do, but like as an example with our letter of intent builder, we've seen definitely over a couple thousand letter of intent sent. Obviously not all accepted, but just lots of usage with those tools. And we recently added different clauses in the LOI builder for things like seller financing, earnouts, conditional holdbacks. And so over time, we'll just continue to improve those tools. And, maybe one day it does become the standard, kind of like we like to think of it as like our version of the Y Combinator Safe investor document, just a document that everyone uses. And if you edit that document, people will kind of go, what? So that's kind of our thought process is, really standardizing and, again, just making things more efficient and easier and faster to sell a business.
Right. Kind of like this learning vault where you just go and you check all the boxes, like what you have or don't have. If you're looking for acquisition, that would be really, really cool.
Yeah.
But and I actually went and registered as a buyer on
Nice.
acquire.com just to see like what's there and like how you do it. And I noticed that you do not disclose the actual names of the businesses and some other information. So what is the basically like why you're doing that? Why not just be super transparent with it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that was built out of just a personal experience, and the profile kind of works as you know, a blind profile, so kind of like a teaser of what the business is, and if you want to request more information of what the business name is, access any sort of due diligence items, view their data room, that's when you would subscribe as a buyer, and then you'd be vetted by my team, and then you'd be able to access that information if approved by the seller. But when I went to sell my first business, business apps, I remember telling my whole company that my biggest fear was my team finding out that we were selling the business and it falls through, because then after that, your whole team is going to be in a constant state of wondering, like, should I just quit now? Like, are you selling the business?
Is it a sinking ship?
Not necessarily a sinking ship, but it just is not a moment you want to put your team through because it's so emotional. And so, but I do remember telling my team, we had an all hands meeting. I said, we're getting acquired next Friday. That's our closing date. And I told my team I'd be available for questions. And I just went into a room and let people come in one by one with just their questions. And they range from, am I becoming a billionaire, a millionaire, or am I getting fired? Like everything in between. And so it's private because, when employees and customers find out that you're selling a business, I think it can be detrimental if, that information gets out to the wrong people. Right. So by keeping it private, I think it gives more security to founders if they have investors or employees or customers that they may not want to know. And then obviously when they have, material offer, they can tell their team, or they can tell their team even before they're going live in the marketplace.
Okay. And I guess that's also because you have this subscription model, but you're not really charging any commission on any of the deals?
That's correct. So the current model that we have now, I really just view as like a vetting process for buyers, because there's a lot of window shoppers, tire kickers, quote unquote. It's kind of an industry term. And so the business model now is we have two tiers, $400 to look at smaller startups, $800 a year to look at larger startups. When I say look at, that means access their private details. We don't currently charge commissions, but we're rolling out our commission plan in Q2. And so we're working towards that. And when I say working towards that, we're not just going to flip on a switch and say, it's more expensive now on acquire.com. So we're right now, I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but a lot of my day is...
a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So, we're building out an account management team, M&A advisory team. And so we're going to be having an offering that's kind of like what you would see at a typical brokerage firm, but leveraging, the technology that we built and the marketplace that we built. So I'm super excited about that, but no commissions right now. So if you list your startup on Acquire, it's completely free. And then when we do turn on commissions, it'll still be free. And it'll just be for startups moving forward.
So always free for the sellers, but the buyers are going to pay.
No, I should correct that. So the commission is going to be charged to the seller, but if you list before we go live with commissions, we won't come back and say, okay, thanks for listing for free. Now you got to, we won't do a switcheroo, if you will, on that.
Okay, you're like
Grandfather. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking
right?
for.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So one more thing, and this is something that I've heard on your other podcast. You were talking about the commission actually, and how you are introducing it because you're also introducing more value to the sellers, right? More data-driven process. So what does it mean? What kind of things are you going to share? How is it going to change? So basically, like, what's the value that is now that more important and expensive?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. So right now, when you list on acquire.com, it's really self-serve, and it's kind of a quantity model where we do reject a lot of startups, but we don't spend the necessary time like getting on the phone with them, educating them on how to handle buyer negotiations, items that every buyer is going to ask you, like, do you have a P&L? Have you filled out a due diligence checklist? How does their listing look? So we're scoring listings in terms of, are you adding these items? Can you connect your metrics? Essentially just preparing startups a lot more with a more hands-on method than we are now, and really also being there if they have questions. So if they do receive a letter of intent or they do receive an asset purchase agreement, being available to, give an opinion on those documents. So that's kind of the general thought process is, we do provide a lot of value now in terms of taking startups live on the marketplace, introducing them to buyers, marketing their startups to other buyers. But we're really adding that layer of support in terms of, preparation, coaching, and then also additional marketing. So kind of the short version is, we want to really put startups in the best possible position to get acquired. And there's just so many things that we can do to help. And that's through just basic account management, like a 1 hour, 2 hour call, going over your listing, going over your plan. Why do you want to sell? What is your goal? How do we get there? What to expect when you go live? And if we do that right, we'll create a better experience, not just for buyers, because startups listed on Acquire will be more prepared. They'll be more responsive. They'll have a better understanding of how to sell their business, how to communicate with buyers. And then for startups, it's great because they just increase their chances of being acquired, because we're kind of unveiling, everything that we've learned from successful acquisitions and educating them more hands-on in terms of, this is kind of the quality that, buyers need to see in terms of preparation. And when they reach out to you, be responsive. You're selling your business. There's a quote that I disagree with, which is startups are bought, not sold. And I think that applies to, maybe the 1% of startups that are growing like crazy. And then, Google, as another example, comes knocking. But for most business owners, you have to sell your business. You have to really follow up with buyers. You have to create the proper materials that lets buyers evaluate your business. And so those are all the items that we're going to be rolling out with commissions.
Right. Selling a business is selling. So yeah, I completely agree with you. You have to be out there, and you have to kind of, sell yourself, make yourself more attractive to the buyer. And I really want to come back to creating value for the sellers, but I also want to ask about the brokers, because I know at least one of the startups that we acquired at saas.group went through a broker, right, that works with you. So, and I remember again from your story that being exposed to like a huge pool of brokers, just everyone trying to get to you, to work with you, was a problem for you. So what made you kind of still introduce brokers to the platform?
Yeah, good question. So we're actually going to be deprecating that program in some senses. And the reason we launched it was to learn
Okay.
basically the inefficiencies of brokering a business, things that we could streamline and automate, things that we could utilize software to just, again, increase the efficiency of everything that a broker does, because there's so many manual processes, from creating the blind profile to distributing that to signing NDAs to circulating the SIM, setting up, buyer calls, setting up buyer seller calls, all these different like manual things that I think could easily be automated. And so that's really why we launched that, was to learn, to see firsthand just, how difficult brokering, a startup can be and how much time it truly takes. And also just how much value a broker really just doesn't add, in my opinion. I don't think a broker can take a bad business and sell it. You need to have a good business to sell. And a broker really just facilitates, introductions of a buyer, controls the process, ensures that you're ready to go live in terms of, preparation of materials. And those are all things that we can automate.
Okay, interesting. All right. I know that it was a great experience. That's why I asked. And okay, it would be really interesting to see how you automate this. But let's get back to the value for the sellers. And I think it's safe to say you are quite a celebrity. Everyone on LinkedIn knows who you are. Everyone just, okay, Andrew posted. So just like everyone rushes to comment and to get to, a bit of that shadow of the fame to themselves. And you're doing a lot for the exposure of the founders that are selling on acquire.com. Why did you decide that this is going to be something to do?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the compliment. I think everyone in my family would disagree, but I appreciate the mention. In terms of social media, I believe that people don't want to hear from brands today. They want to hear from the person who's the founder of the company, or the brand. The founder is the brand ambassador. So in terms of social media, the way I view it is, it's a great outlet for growth. It could definitely, I think some people maybe spend too much time on there. So my social media strategy is usually pretty simple. I usually write something when I'm making coffee in the morning. I don't overthink stuff.
So no AI generated content? No, or not yet?
No. My thoughts on AI real quick, and then I'll answer your question is, we're going to be looking into that probably in a couple months, because you always see this wave, and then you see, I saw this with mobile apps when the iPhone first came out. There's all this kind of like people trying to figure out how it's being used, and then the real strong use cases become clear. And I think that's already, been made clear. I think this time we're moving a little bit faster, but I think in a month we're going to know like what are the real use cases. Everyone's kind of, you can do this, but I think the real sticking points will come in a month.
Right.
But in terms of your original question, I think, today, the reason, we celebrate, founders selling their business so much at acquire.com is, all you really hear about is these billion-dollar acquisitions or these $100 million acquisitions, the really, really big ones. But in reality, like 99% of acquisitions are under $50 million, which is a huge number. But unfortunately, in the startup ecosystem, environment, community, whatever you want to call it, they're not really celebrated. It's kind of like, oh well, that's
Yeah.
cute, but that's a crazy amount of money. And so I like to celebrate even people selling businesses for 25K or 100K or all the way up to 10 million. That's incredible. It's an incredible feat, and I think it should be celebrated a lot more because it's also a more realistic view of entrepreneurship, in my opinion. And it also puts kind of the goals, a little more like insight with people, where not everyone's going to build $1 billion business, and I don't think you need to build Yeah, that's okay. You don't need to. You don't need to build $1 billion business to be successful. So just celebrating the quote unquote smaller wins, I think, is a really rewarding part of my job.
Right. Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree, and I love the this shifting trend of sharing the MRR of, I don't know, your pet projects or your side hustles. Like, oh, we just reached $700 MRR. That's perfect, and everyone's kind of celebrating that. And I think it's a good kind of shift. Like you said, it's more down to earth, more realistic. So it's great that you're doing that. Why do it yourself? Also, something that I was curious about, like, why are you dedicating, like, why do something that doesn't scale at this point? Because microacquire is fairly big already. Like, if you were just the very early stages of your growth, I would kind of understand it more. But now you're big, everyone recognizes you. Why are you still doing something that doesn't scale?
What part that doesn't scale?
The podcast, the interviews with the founders.
Oh, why am I still doing those?
Yeah.
And why am I? Candidly, I enjoy it. That's probably, again, my favorite part of the job is marketing. It's creating content. It's inspiring and motivating other entrepreneurs. And also those podcasts that I do, it's because you have a product, you have a marketplace, and I can log in, I can see all the activity and stuff like that, but it gets so much more real when you talk to these founders one-on-one. And we talk before we record and then obviously after. But as an example, Monday I talked to a founder in Nigeria who had sold 2 businesses on acquire.com and had a fantastic new business that he's working on now. And then just yesterday, I talked to a founder in India who had bought 2, sold 2, and just hearing those conversations inspires me. And so I love to get on, a podcast with them, hear their story. Then I also get, some feedback at the end. What do you like about the product? What can we improve? So it's kind of a double hack of productivity in my view, in terms of number one, I get to speak with customers, and then 2, I get to share their stories and help promote whatever they're building on next, or learn more about how their experience was on acquire.com so I can help improve that. And I just like it, if I'm just being candid. I like doing podcasts like this. I love meeting interesting people. It's definitely, you can't scale a human. I can't be awake 24 hours a day. But luckily I have a great team, and I've delegated, most of the other items. And so it allows me time to focus on, I guess, another way of putting it is, there's, something called like your zone of genius and your zone of, I think the other one's like competence, things that you really love to do and things that you're good at, but you don't really like to do. You want to delegate all that stuff and just focus on your zone of genius. And so one of my favorite parts of building a company is the distribution model, the marketing strategy, getting the word out of the business. And so that's kind of where I like to spend most of my energy.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a brilliant strategy. The first time I saw that you were doing that, I thought, wow, like, it's exposure for you, exposure for them. They're definitely coming back if it's, a good experience on top of that, or the podcast on top of the good experience. So kudos. I think it's absolutely amazing. But I want to ask a few questions about the way you run acquire.com, right? Because it's grown, it's scaling, it's changing all the time. Like you were talking about new features. And by the way, why the new name?
That's a good question. So why drop micro from microacquire? Lots of data. So lots and lots of data. So we had always had customers asking, like, is my startup too big? And the answer is no. We have buyers like yourself that we work with, that can do 7-8 figure transactions. And so it was always, fun fact, I first reached out to the person with acquire.com, the domain, maybe 3 years ago, and they wanted $800,000 for the domain. And we ended up getting it for $200,000 with some crafty negotiations when I was on vacation, which is odd timing.
Right.
They just came back out and said, "Hey, we're looking to sell this," and we made it happen. But I felt, acquire.com really would, send a good statement to the market that, we're here to facilitate acquisitions from 10K all the way up to, 100 million. That's our goal. And micro can mean a lot of different things to different people. And it can mean small, tiny, little, and those are great. But no one wants a small, tiny, little acquisition. Right. We want to maximize exits. And I think acquire.com really leans into that more and really just expands the businesses that we can work with rather than just small, tiny, little businesses.
Okay. All right. So let's get a little bit around it, like how you're doing the business, day-to-day operations. So, and this is the podcast that we're doing it at 8 a.m. your time, 8:30?
8. We started at 8. Now it's 9.
Okay, so that's fairly early. Is it your typical day? So, what time do you start, and how do you motivate yourself to start the day?
Yeah. Do you want me to go through my whole schedule? I can.
Yeah,
it's pretty consistent.
Skip a little.
Yeah. So I wake up around 5 a.m. My son, he wakes up around 7 p.m. Hang out with him for a little bit. Then he goes to preschool. Then I generally have my first meetings around 10 a.m. I make sure to go to lunch with my wife every day at noon or 11 or 1 whenever I have time. And then depending on the day, there's usually just something that needs my attention, so I'll focus there. And then another non-negotiable is my son comes home, play with him. I read to him every single night. So I have kind of a balanced life of, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, but also running a business. So I make sure to put time and energy into all those because they're all, big priorities for me.
Right. So no 16-hour sprints.
Yeah, I don't do any of the, wake up, meditate, ice bath, listen to Naval's podcast or something like that. I just get up, I drink coffee, I get to work. I also exercise during the day. Just basic, but then I also try to delegate parts of the business that I'm not good at. So just, product, operations, sales management, customer support, all those items, onboarding startups, all those items have been, delegated, which allows me to really just help work on the business rather than, working in the business.
Okay. So you already took this more of a strategic role. I loved, I had the other guest on the podcast and he was saying I'm like Enzo Ferrari. So I build the prototype of this great, amazing car. And then everyone else makes it industrial and just makes sure that, we ship thousands of those cars. So is it your role, building this big idea of how you're going to proceed?
Yeah, I think for me, I like to be very collaborative with my team. I'm not the smartest person on my team by far. And so I don't have, the answer to every single question, but I'm always confident in terms of, when you work together truly as a team and you trust each other, you will always find the correct answer. So, doing things as tests to figure out what doesn't work is just as valuable as doing things that do work and double downing on those things. I always like to say sometimes you got to get it wrong to get it right because you learn so much. So in terms of, some CEOs kind of say things like, we got to set the strategy and the vision, but the reality is your strategy and your vision will slightly deviate from plan as you go to market. I think it's very rare for a founder to have the ability to just say, this is the way we're going, and then just that path does not deviate. And I also think it's dangerous because, you get when you go to market, you get so much feedback from customers, from your team, and you should really listen to those people. And that may mean adjusting, the name of your company. That may mean adjusting, the strategy of, a certain, product that you're building or something like that. My point here is you're not every founder is Steve Jobs, and they can say, I think everyone's going to want this thing that no one's ever seen before, and I don't want to hear anyone's feedback. And, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, I like to listen and also be open to being wrong in terms of, my strategy and how you lead the company. But I view my role as, really trying to make myself the most useless person in the company, where, I surround myself with people smarter than me, and then I lean on them for advice and guidance. And then at some moments, there is a point where, it is my job to make the hard decision because you're constantly working in an environment with limited information, you have to make decisions quickly. So that's probably how I describe my job. And then just motivating people. And then I guess another thing I'd add is, it's one thing to build something, but I'm a big believer in the team aspect, like I just said. So I'm architecting the culture and the cadence and expectations from, your team, and making it fun and an enjoyable place to work, understanding what motivates people, not just professionally, but also personally, and understanding that people that you work with, you're not going to work with them for the next 40 years. So I like to have open dialogues of, what do you want to get out of working here? And then how can I help you achieve that? So that's also another tidbit. I think culture trumps strategy.
Right. Okay. Yeah, completely agree with you. I think, and a lot of founders also said that, you have to at some point be absolutely useless if you're doing things right. So, are there any rules that, that are non-negotiable, that work, that keep you afloat, and that, you can deviate from them maybe from time to time, but actually they are the rules that maybe have been with you over all 4 startups, or something that you really deeply believe in?
Yeah, another good question. I would say, understanding that you work for your team and not the other way around is a big one. My job is to make sure my team is happy, they are motivated, and they have everything they need to succeed. There's multiple layers to that onion to pull back on how to get there. But at the end of the day, I think, some core principles is, hire people smarter than yourself. It really does take a team to win. Create a culture that people are proud to be a part of. And then also, inspire people and motivate people about the mission that you're on and the problem that you're solving. Because I think in the early days of a startup, the people that are really going to help through the good times and the bad times are the ones that are, just excited about the work that they're doing. And that's how you get the most out of everybody. I'm a firm believer that everyone kind of has an extra 20 or 30% of productivity in them, and it's your job to unlock it. So, hire people smarter than you, focus heavily on culture, What's another one? And then, I'm a big believer in just working in your zone of genius in terms of, understanding like what you're good at and what you're not good at, and delegating the things that don't give you energy and just focus on things that do give you energy, because startups can be a 10-year journey. And if you don't really keep those things in mind, you're going to burn out. So those are just, 3 off the top of my head.
Right. Okay. What about like something, I don't know, don't hire people, I don't know, when you're not very sure if you need another team member, or I don't know, something like more operational, like maybe some financial rules, like we do not spend on Facebook ads, or like something like that.
Yeah, I can speak to how I think about hiring. So when I look to hire people, I look for motivation, attitude, and skill set in that order, because I can't teach the other two.
Right.
So again, if you have one bad apple in a group, it can ruin the bunch. And then in terms of hiring, I always like to say we like to hire when it hurts, and what that means is over hiring can be so destructive for so many businesses, and I think we've seen a lot of that, unfortunately. So we're very thoughtful about each person that we bring onto the business, and making sure that we're not overextending ourselves just for the sake of hiring. In terms of like other rules, I'm trying to think. Not really. No, I mean, we have company values and our culture written out, and that's usually something I go over with every person that joins the company on the first day. And also we screen for that. That's pretty much the only thing I'm screening for when I interview someone. But no hard rules like, I tell my team, ask for forgiveness, not permission. So, go fail, go make mistakes, go, and then come back and what'd you learn? Because the more you fail, it's just a part of building a business. And the more that you're willing to fail, and the more that you encourage your team to take these risks, it leads to the right direction. Like one of the biggest things I hear from, other founders is the importance of speed of execution. And it's really important, but don't go too fast because you don't want to go in the wrong direction. And then I always say, like, well, to find the right direction, you need to move really fast. You need to make decisions. You need to iterate. And that's how you find the right direction. You don't just magically whiteboard it out and then go down that way. Yeah, no, it doesn't work like that. No, you have to, get your hands in the business. You have to, try different things. And some of those things might not work out. So, tough question. I'm trying to think of something that I say. I guess.
Yeah, no, I just, I've heard so many, like, don't hire when there is no heavy cash flow coming in, no meetings whatsoever, absolutely synchronous work at all times. Yeah, a lot of founders are talking about the culture and failure. Fast iteration, like only 2 weeks, I guess, to ship a new feature. If it's more than 2 weeks, or like if it takes more than 2 people, then we're not doing it.
Yeah, I think those all make sense. I guess it just depends on the business and the style of leadership. There's so many different styles of leadership within startups. And I think we're starting to see more of the top-down approach. Like, I need my team to do all this stuff exactly my way because it's the right way. But I'm more of like, if you think of like a triangle, the leader is on top and everyone's below. I like to think of the triangle, but I'm at the bottom and, lifting everybody up. So I don't have hard rules of don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. I'm like, try it. Because one of my favorite quotes is, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So we're constantly learning, we're constantly iterating. And I think that sort of culture also motivates people too, where, they have the freedom to try new things and not have this like just work within this box because, I read a book on Elon Musk and this is how he runs his companies. Like, it's just not me.
Right. Okay, cool. It kind of leads me to a couple of last questions. And the first one is something that I always ask. What's the biggest win and the biggest failure or biggest mistake so far?
In my career or
let's stick to acquire.com. So should I call it acquire.com? I kind of get confused by .com bit.
Yeah, I like saying I like saying the .com because it gives some brand uniqueness in terms of people searching on Google will type acquire.com instead of just acquire. Because when you buy a dictionary word, you can buy the word food and then that's your company. It's kind of in that vein, but acquire is fine. That's what we call it internally. And then externally. Okay. I go back and forth. In terms of, sorry, repeat your question.
The biggest win.
I had a good answer. Okay. Oh yeah. Biggest success and biggest failure. I think getting the first customer is always kind of like the biggest win. That was an exciting moment, or just first acquisition, just when it starts working. When you have an idea and you put it out in the market and then it starts to work, it's this exhilarating. Like I know who my first customer was and I know who the first acquisition was. I know exactly where I was when those moments happened. So shout out to Ryan Holmes, who founded Hootsuite. He was the very first customer.
Then
the first startup sold was called, I'm forgetting the name, Mail something. I remember where I was when both those events took place, and it just really starts to be like, whoa, this is working. But we've had, many other, wins. And I also like to celebrate even the small wins. Like, we, shipped updates to our chat interface last week, which doesn't sound like the biggest update, but we've already seen messages and creations from that. So I like to constantly celebrate wins. And then in terms of the biggest failure, that's a tough one. I would say if I had to pin one, we luckily haven't had a big failure in terms of, we've been wrong about a lot of different things.
Maybe like a challenge.
Yeah, a challenge. I would say getting founders to understand what their business is worth is probably a big challenge. And that's kind of a constant, tug of war, because we started the business in 2021. Valuations were sky high, and people were paying crazy prices, so it's really hard to value a startup. We've since built a valuation tool that pulls in data from other acquisitions that we've seen on the marketplace for founders, specifically SaaS founders. We're going to open that up to other types of businesses soon, but that's always a challenge. Helping educate startups on, again, the preparation, really what's required to sell a business. It's not just create your profile, go live, don't respond to anybody, and then someone's going to give you an offer. You got to sell the business.
Sit and pray. It's going to help.
Yeah. But I'm trying to think of a good one. Like my previous startups, I had my servers crash. This one time we had $100,000 Google ad spend budget that was resulting in basically no ROI. So we call it the era of blowing up a Ferrari every month, because we didn't. And this leads back to like things that I've corrected in this business was we didn't have. I was in charge of marketing. I didn't know what I was doing. Business was growing fast, and it was kind of like, don't touch anything. Literally, we had to refactor the entire platform one time because we built it on Just basically spaghetti code. What else? We had so much crazy stuff happen. This is specifically business apps, which is a no code app builder. We were at this is a funny one. So we had an engineer merge two cells in a database, and our whole platform went down for 12 hours. And we were in Florida meeting with one of the big do-it-yourself website builders for a potential acquisition conversation. We were going to dinner with them that night. And so me and, my VP of product and COO were just pacing around the hotel room, communicating with people back in San Francisco. Like, how do we fix this? And we had to do a full date. This is when when this happens, it was a lot harder to fix. We got it fixed like just in time. We come to the meeting all super nervous because we were assuming they were going through our platform, evaluating. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've had my fair share of mistakes, but with Acquire, we haven't really had any huge major, I guess I'm probably cursing myself and something bad.
Well, touch wood.
Probably.
I have a bamboo here.
I would right now. I'm touching right now. Yeah, no. Team's great. No bad hires. No server crashes. Yeah, that's a great question. I need to think about that a little bit more because there's definitely mistakes that we've made. I just can't think of a major one, and I think maybe they're being blinded by some of the big ones that made in the past.
Well, maybe it's good. Then there were no, unless you're just like trying to block it because it was just so bad. But no, it's good that it got you thinking. But I have just one more bonus question. This is again varies from founder to founder, but I try to ask everyone. Everyone's talking about AI, obviously, or the Silicon Valley Bank lately. So what do you think will be the biggest disappointment of 2023? Will it be AI, or will it be the financial system and the fact that we have to change something?
Oh, that was a great question. I think AI has already kind of proven itself to be something to keep an eye on. I think for the last 5 years, everyone kind of thought AI was a joke, but it really all that's happened was this. So LLM has been around for a while, and they just put a simple user-friendly interface on it, and everyone started using it, and it's been incredible seeing how many use cases. So I don't think AI is going to be a disappointment. I think if you're running any startup and you're not thinking about AI, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. In terms of the banks, man, that was crazy. I was in Cabo for a wedding, and that all happened. And we weren't at Silicon Valley Bank, but obviously that put a little damper on my vacation. So I think every year is hard for startup founders. It's never easy. It's always going to be something. So you mentioned two things. AI could disrupt your business. Silicon Valley Bank and the banking financial system as a whole. We could go into a full-on multi-year recession. I don't know. Something else bad might happen. It's just part of being a startup founder, business owner, or really just life in general. Bad stuff happens, and I think the way I kind of view those events is just expect them. The unexpected happens, and when it does, just take care of it. But don't worry about things you can't control.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can get I'm getting the vibe that you're not a kind of person that sticks to the bad stuff, and that's probably good. That's I don't know, that's a damage control for every founder that that they should have. Yeah, well, I guess that was my last question. Thank you so much for an honest opinion and for telling the whole story of how you're running Acquire.com and how it's helping the sellers and the buyers to just have an awesome experience with their acquisition.
Yeah, my pleasure. And congrats on the acquisition that we did together. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was.
Hope to do it again soon.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much and take care.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.